And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our first speaker, Larry Singel, who'll get us started before we open up for questions. Larry works in the Provost's office here at UT. So Larry, take it away.
Thanks. So as JB said, I'm Larry Singel, Senior Vice Provost of Resource Management. And I guess I want to reiterate that our top two priorities remain to ensure the safety of our students, faculty, and staff, and to continue the critical functions of the university with regard to research and teaching. Thus, as most of you guys are aware, we've moved exclusively to online education for our students. That begins March 30th. We've also sought to operate the university remotely wherever possible. And where not possible, we're focusing on critical operations where clear social distancing precautions, including research labs and facilities. Thus, UT has now adjusted to be operational to the full extent possible in this unprecedented situation we find ourselves in. Everything we are doing as a campus, including all of our faculty and staff, is to support students through this, the completion of this semester. We know how important it is for students and their families to know that the university is working to help them through this transition and to ensure their success in finishing the semester. I really would like to commend all of our faculty, staff, and students for the remarkable resilience and tenacity they have shown, and recognizing that for each of us, it is an exceptional opportunity to work on our empathy towards one another as we adjust to the situation none of us anticipated or genuinely asked for. It is our intent that UT be an exemplar for flexibility and compassion to what is a difficult circumstance for every member of our community. For the measure of a person or an organization is how it each operate when the chips are down. While this transition is challenging for universities across the country, we recognize that people all across America and the world are experiencing major challenges and personal tragedies as a result of the spread of the coronavirus. As an educational and a research institution, we want to carry on our mission so that our faculty, researchers, and graduates can be part of the solution. The knowledge created by universities like Texas is playing a major role in helping us fight the pandemic. But it's not just specific research on a specific virus that will help society in the years to come. It's also creating well-rounded, well-educated citizens who have the awareness, insight, and courage to start new companies, create new jobs, and solve society's toughest problems. With that in mind, we are all committed to advancing the mission of the university in this difficult period so that what starts here truly does change the world. We have assembled a number of university personnel who have been at the front lines of bringing the university online, as it were, and we are prepared to answer your questions. So thank you.
Yes, and we're having, speaking of empathy, Larry said we should have empathy. We're having our first little technical difficulty, which is I am not seeing the questions in the Zoom group chat, but Ellie, are you seeing them? You can ask a question.
I'm not seeing any questions yet, but reporters that are here, you're feel free to comment them in the chat box and we can get them to the right person.
Yeah, please. There we go. First question from Hannah Williford. Thank you. Have teachers who haven't used Zoom before had any education on the technology? What kind of recommendation did you give teachers on going to online classes? So I think that's a good one for Larry and Marla.
Marla, you want to start, and then I'll finish.
Sure. Yeah. So once it became apparent that we were going to need to bring courses online, and prior to that effort as well, just kind of watching as the pandemic developed, we began assembling resources from around campus. Technical and faculty support resources came together to work on plans and put into action very quickly efforts to mobilize faculty and provide them the resources that they've needed through central websites, through the Faculty Innovation Center and others. The colleges and even departments have stood up resources as well. We extended our help desk support activities as well as created a number of training workshops for faculty to attend And we continue to build out those tools and tech for them in preparation for Monday. They've been asked to go through a series of steps, including filing in a course plan and working with their colleagues and the other resources that are available to prepare themselves to be able to communicate and deliver their teaching resources to students beginning next week, both on Zoom and other technologies that the campus has mobilized.
Let me just add to that. So that, UT has actually been delivering high quality, highly produced online education for a long time. And actually most of our students participate in online education to some degree. So what's really unusual about this circumstance is having all of our instruction online, but we were really fortunate to have been in a position where we had actually begun that process a number of years ago, such that it wasn't completely new. But for some faculty and for some students, it will be completely new. And so we're trying to develop resources to make sure that those individuals are supported.
All right, next question from Claire at KUT. What is the status for classes like labs and hands-on learning and research? How will they proceed through the semester? And how are you addressing research projects dependent on grants?
So let me start on this one, and then I think others can pipe in as needed. So there are sort of two parts to that question. The first part is, how are we dealing with hands-on types of circumstances? And one of the remarkable things about these types of crises is we discover creativity that we didn't know we had. And so we've asked all of our instructors to figure out how to be able to deliver these things that you would imagine would be almost required to be in person, but that in fact, through a number of creative opportunities, we've been able to develop online labs and have people work through it. It's admittedly different than it was before, but there are models out there, and our faculty have been made aware of those opportunities. So I think that is something that it will definitely see as it progresses, but it's something that I think the university has tried to remedy to the extent possible. With regard to research, the Vice President of Research has worked to identify critical research functions and make sure that those things continue, and that we're continuing to advance grants to the extent that we can. So in fact, research is still continuing. It's being done in a way that is allowing social distancing to continue. Those things that are not deemed essential and where social distancing isn't possible are taking a hiatus. And we're working with the granting agencies to, the NSF and the NIH have communicated to us, various things that we're able of doing. And so we're in active communication with them to make sure that we're able to comply with federal guidelines with regard to grants and keep our research going to the extent possible.
And just on research, we can follow up after the call for more detail with the Vice President of Research on that, because the vast majority of research is paused on campus right now, but there are some particulars around the funding we can cover. But going back on the topic of creativity, Marla, we had a question. Can you give an example of the creativity that you're seeing with teaching innovation or the infrastructure to help support teaching innovation?
Yes, absolutely. My favorite example right now has been spun up through our studio groups that Larry mentioned earlier. We've been had a foundational and important online course effort here at UT for many years. We have a lot of technology and just learning that has gone on behind that, and a very innovative group of folks that are working, constantly to support those efforts. Those same folks have been able to stand up over the last few days a remote studio system that's being used now with remote technical direction and remote faculty to be able to record in safe situations right now and very high quality. So where prior to this, for lecture recording, we were using technologies such as our existing studio facilities and a quite extensive classroom recording as well. we've been able to further extend that in a very short amount of time to be able to work with remote faculty. So that's been, you know, one of the definitely sort of innovation by necessity that's come out of it, but I think it highlights really well the creativity and ingenuity and the spirit of action here at UT right now.
So we're able to do what Anderson Cooper's doing?
We
or,
are.
Or Stephen Colbert? That's nice.
We are,
Right.
with some fantastic faculty.
Great. Working backwards through the questions from Daranisha Heron, will UT reimburse any tuition back to students due to the fact that some of the amenities they are paying for are not being used anymore? Let's see, Kelly, are you able to take that one?
Do you want me to take this one, Kelly?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, please do, Jennifer. Yes.
I'm Jennifer Love, the director of the Texas One Stop. And, you know, tuition dollars really support and deliver our educational mission here at UT. And as a university transitions truly to this remote learning environment, our funds for in-person student activities and support services are being utilized so that our students and faculty have the necessary digital resources, including learning platforms, enhanced support, complete coursework in the online environment, and the transition to virtual academic advising and services. So this policy of continuing to support the tuition dollars for the spring semester is consistent with all the UT systems and schools around the state. So no reimbursement for the spring term is planned.
But we are reimbursing services like parking services, rec sports, housing and dining. So the things beyond tuition that
Correct.
people have paid for are all being refunded at a prorated rate. And also there are opportunities for greater financial aid if you have experienced a sudden change in circumstances, as we know that many people are experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. And then let's go back to Laura Cordy. What kind of changes is the administration considering to the grades this semester? What are the pros and cons of a pass-fail system versus an A minus model? And Larry, I think you can help with this, but just so everyone knows, we expect a decision, you know, fairly soon so that students can plan for the semester on the grading model. But that decision hasn't been made as of this call, but it should be very soon, you know, so students can be planning.
My understanding is that the faculty council voted yesterday, and that the president is now speaking with student government representatives so that that everybody understands what the decisions are made. Grading is really something that's part of faculty governance, and so it was really important that the conversations happen with faculty, because faculties are the keepers of academic standards, and that in coordination with our board that evaluates our accreditation is also essential. So there are a number of trade-offs we have to maintain. I think what I understand from talking to people about the grading options is that really the goal here is to try to give the maximum flexibility to students. So my understanding, for example, the ability of students to drop is being extended to the end of the term. There are opportunities for students to change their grade really up to the last moment, from potentially from a grading option to a pass, no pass. There's a recognition. I mean, one of the things that, you know, we've really worked hard at trying to do at Texas, we've had the opportunity to take a little bit more time, since unlike places like the University of Washington where coronavirus was upon them immediately, you know, we've had a little more time to prepare as we tried to learn from our fellow institutions about the various shortcomings. And so, for example, you have to worry about the fact that if you're trying to get into medical school, grading is really an important thing for you on an organic chemistry class. So we don't want to necessarily go to, you know, something where we would particularly give a grade or not give a grade. We're giving the student an opportunity to have the ability to determine what's best for them in that setting. And so I think that's what's likely to be moving forward, although as JB said, that's going to be announced shortly.
Great. And we have a question from Houston, from Brittany Brito. She asked, you know, with students coming back from spring break, what trainings and educations have students been offered to transition into online education? And are there other platforms being used aside from Zoom? I think we mentioned the second part, but it's no harm reiterating that second part too. But yeah, what trainings are there for students on the different platforms that they can use?
So JB, I can hop in here and answer a part of this question. What we've launched today is a Keep Learning website on the Texas One Stop website in collaboration with campus colleagues to be able to offer students a central place on the web that allows our students to be able to see a prioritized list of resources and support so that our students can continue their learning for this semester. One of the really great pieces of the website is the fact that there's a test Canvas site, and I don't know if Marla wants to chime in and mention a little bit further on that, but really trying to put front and center for our students the resources that are still very available to them in a virtual environment for them to be successful.
Great, thank you.
Just as a note on the Canvas course that we'll push forward to students, it's intended for them to be able to work through it, take a look at the technologies that we think faculty will most commonly be using, check their equipment and their web connectivity, and try to plan with us if there are some technical issues and hurdles that they may need to work through with us before classes begin. And in terms of the tools, Zoom is certainly going to be looked to for by quite a few faculty. The university has also contracted with Panopto, which is a very stable platform for uploading video that have been recorded through other mechanisms or recording within Panopto itself. And then faculty are using other technologies at their disposal as well. But we have recognized that it's important to have multiple platforms to look to in the event of overloads next week and beyond.
Great, and we have a question about graduations, but before I get to that, I just want to remind people that Dr. Hines is on the call, our Chief Medical Officer, and while we're focusing mostly on the academic stuff, which is great, because there's a lot of questions there, if you do have questions about how the public health aspects of our campus heading into the spring, please feel free to throw those out there for Dr. Hines, or anything else on public health or campus health. So we have a question: how do you plan to handle spring graduations if we cannot gather during that time? And President Fenves sent a letter to the community this week explaining that our big all-school commencement will be postponed. And the smaller graduation ceremonies that take place at our colleges and schools will also be postponed. So those are being postponed, and the plan is to have ceremonies later in the year. The timing has not been determined yet, whether that might be before the fall semester starts or at the end of the fall semester in December, but that will be worked out. And it'll be worked out, as a community, because this is an important event for so many members of our community. In the interim, we are going to do some form of a digital commencement this spring to honor all the hard work people are doing, to complete their degrees under these tough circumstances. And our commencement speaker, Brene Brown, is going to take part in that. And if you haven't had a chance to see her conversation with the president this week, she gave really good advice that I found useful, and I'm not even a student. So anything else? I think we've covered that. So let me see additional questions. I can't answer right now exactly when will we get more information on updating grading scale, but it will be very soon. And we know students need that to plan for the semester. So it'll be very soon. Any final questions? Oh, there we go. So I have one question I don't mind taking. We can take a couple more, or else we'll wrap up with this one. Who is on campus right now and what is running? What about things like ongoing experiments and labs that need to be kept up? So who's on campus now?
JB, can I chime in?
Yeah, Kelly, can you take that? Because Mylon was, we don't have our housing person, unfortunately. Yes.
Sure, absolutely. So good morning, everyone. We have a lot of support systems that are still working on campus or remotely. So obviously our university housing and dining are supporting the students who are needing to move out, and we're looking at emergency housing for folks that, you know, for whatever reason can't go home right now. And so that's one major piece. The other thing is our student emergency services team in the Office of the Dean of Students has been helping hundreds of students with basic needs, technology, equipment, all of those things that, you know, have been impacted by the virus and, you know, our economy issues. And so those students are getting individual case managers reaching out to them and providing support and emergency funding for all of those needs to make sure they're successful this semester.
And I see Dr. Kirksey, Mylon Kirksey is on the phone. Mylon, did you want to add anything on the who's on campus, the housing population, and what we anticipate maybe in the coming week?
Thank you, JB. Kelly did a great job of summarizing our combined and collaborative efforts. But just to share that altogether we have a little over half of our residents, of our 7,300 residents, checked out of the residence halls already, and the remaining have the opportunity to check out until May 20.
Great, thank you.
JB, if I could come in as well.
Yeah,
so
please do.
University Health Services is open and available to care for students who are living on campus or locally. We are also transitioning much of our routine care to telemedicine, but we are having on-site services for urgent care to assess acute injuries or illness, as well as a designated respiratory clinic. And then counseling and mental health services has moved to an entirely remote telecounseling and video conferencing model. And they are still available as well, including their crisis line, which is 24/7, 365.
Great, and I see a couple questions about whether campus facilities could be used, like the Irwin Center or spare dorm capacity could be used for medical facilities. And we'll have to follow up after the call on that, because I don't think any of us know whether that subject's been broached or not. But we're happy to look into that after the call. And then, so let's finish up with a question on, okay, what about things like ongoing experiments and labs that need to be kept up? Again, we can follow up with more detail on research, but I can let you know that all research is on pause, except for some limited essential research. And then we do have a facility intact, the Texas Advanced Computing Center, that can be run remotely. So that's, their research is ongoing. And then within the research enterprise, some researchers have requested exemptions for important ongoing research or projects that need to wrap up. And the Vice President of Research is in the process of reviewing all those exemptions now. So I don't have a complete list of that right now, but I do know the vast majority of research is on pause as of this week, with some exceptions for critical ongoing projects.
Yeah, let me just add to that, which is that, you know, research in labs, I think, is what's on pause. A fair amount of the research that faculty could do remotely is still continuing. So, you know, I think the difference is that places where research needs to be done in person has been paused, but critical facilities like TAC and also the Animal Research Center are continuing to operate, because those are critical services, and failure to operate them would, you know, create long-term issues.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us in this new format, and we'll follow up after the call, and we look forward to continuing to reach you through these remote services in the coming weeks. Thanks.